You're listening to If You Know You Grow the podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Braley, and I have over 15 years experience in marketing, e-commerce, and really all things creative. I'm so excited to take you behind the scenes of thriving businesses, hear from amazing industry experts, and chat a little bit about the mindset that it takes to really succeed in this industry. Please follow, like, and subscribe so that I can continue creating amazing content for you and sharing these incredible stories. Let's get into it. All right, here we are ready to wrap the second season, which is kind of crazy. But I thought this would be a really good thing as today is technically the first day of the new financial year. And yes, sometimes we are actually that in real time to where I'm going to be having that edit this and get this up within the next couple of days. So it all feels a little bit crazy. But I thought it would be so good to recap some of my learnings in my first quarter of being 100% fully self-employed and some of the things that I'm learning and how they can probably apply into your business, but also go into maybe a couple of market predictions and some goal setting for the new year. So it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. But first and foremost, I appreciate all of the support that I get on this podcast more than I could ever explain. And one really big thing is in order for this to grow, which it will be continuing to grow, I have the best guests locked in for season 3. I'm so excited. But in order for it to grow, it does mean that we need support. So anytime that you share this podcast, that you subscribe or like this podcast on the platform that you're watching it on, or that you listen through, like these are all things that actually completely help us. So I appreciate you more than you could understand. But wow. Okay. So we are a full quarter of being 100% self-employed. And I know so many people are confused by that because I have been consulting realistically, like I have been doing consulting and freelance work for almost 18 years now. I am that old. What the fuck? But this last quarter, there was basically the jump of like, I am no longer going to be partially in-house for anybody. I am going to be 100% all in me. And there are certain things that I think that when you make these changes, you start to see not only a shift in your behavior, but it is also, you start to see a shift in the behaviors of kind of the people around you. And I love that I can have fun in what I do. And I also handle stress quite well. I think I have to handle stress really well. If I didn't handle stress really well, then I would literally like self-combust as a person. But that's not to say that I've always handled stress really well. I was actually having a chat with one of my friends and I'd given him like electrolytes and Armor Force and like all of that stuff. And I was like, you need to take care of yourself, because one thing that I've realized is when I have people that rely on me and people that depend on me, if I'm not taking care of myself and if I'm not showing up for myself, then I'm not going to show up in my best capacity, and there's a flow-on effect from that. And am I feeling like a little bit burnt out in some ways? 1,000%. And I think I've kind of touched on that in previous episodes, but this is a really nice way for me to be able to take a little bit of a break from this channel, but also, really use July to set myself up for the next level of expansion across my business, across the podcast, and then across the brands that I work with. And there are a couple of shifts that I took that led me to be able to being fully self-employed. So one of those things is I worked with my accountants to completely restructure myself, and I was no longer a sole trader, I was a business. That comes with an investment, and that obviously comes with risk, but this changed the mentality in the way that I actually started to function, because I started to think about myself as a business. 2 weeks ago, I actually had a tax forecast and like planning and budgeting meeting with my accountant, Tegan, who, I'm very lucky has become a great friend of mine. And I know that she personally cares about me as a human being, as well as, cares about me from the side of like an accountant that wants to see someone's business thrive. And it was so interesting as we started modeling out, in order to get to this level of growth, what do we need to invest in? And I think those are things that are really hard to consider, because it is so easy to want to invest in someone else. It's really hard to want to invest in yourself. So one of the things that I've realized is like, this task is currently bogging me down. So in order for me to get to my next level, I need to remove anything that isn't my secret sauce, anything that is not something that I individually contribute in a way that is uniquely me. And that is often a conversation that I have with founders. And sometimes these tasks are like, stop doing manual payments, start doing ABA file uploads so that things can be done more efficiently. Sometimes this is, hey, you need someone to take over the operations of your business, or you need someone with planning, or you need to bring in a virtual CFO. The advice that I give is quite different, and it's very, very much based on like what that founder needs. But I was able to look back and be like, Chantel, why the fuck are you giving other people advice, but you're not taking your own advice? And that's how I ultimately will hopefully avoid chronic burnout. And it is a privilege to be busy in this industry. It is a privilege to be in demand and to have clients who are in high levels of growth in an industry that's quite volatile at the moment. I have a lot of opinions on the volatility, and it's really hard because I don't think that it is helpful for me to voice those opinions or me to voice the way that I perceive things, because a lot of those opinions won't actually drive growth. And yes, every opinion is valid. And yes, I have this platform, so I should be sharing opinions. But a lot of times when business is hard, it is because you are not getting the correct advice, or you are not taking the correct advice. And sometimes it's that you're not getting the advice, and it's because you're having a chat with a friend who is in a business who is lying. And I hate to say it, but the amount of times that a founder to founder will be like, oh yeah, we fucking smashed this, like blah, blah, blah. And it's all ego. And then you hear internally from team members that things aren't happening and they're not getting done, and that things aren't that successful. Like, that narrative is not actually helpful. You being so full of your ego that you're not willing to admit that there's a teething problem within your business is not helpful. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, is because I'm behind the scenes of so many things that I know that there is such a thing as a growth pain. It is painful. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, do I like it a bit rough? Okay, maybe. That might actually be like a very valid thing. But if you think about the fact that it is a growing pain, and we sit here and we sell all of our highlight reels of things constantly, it becomes so deflating to either reach out and ask for help or find advisory that's going to get you out of your issue. And that's fucking tough, right? Or on the flip side, you see people who have paid for fantastic advisory and then they don't take the advisory. Obviously, you can't take advisory that you don't agree with, because not all advisory is going to be great advisory. And sometimes you might have someone that you don't align with. And like, there are, again, nuances and levels to that. But at the end of the day, if you pay for the advice and you don't take the advice, then maybe you shouldn't have paid for the advice in the first place. That's actually one of the things that I really shifted, is I have people pay for audits with me. One, I'm a finite resource, right? So I can't just audit things for free. I'm not this big agency that has these, huge resources around. I also have an IP on, if I'm going to audit you, I'm also going to give you my perspective and my feedback. And that feedback comes with 18 years experience and 18 years of building some of the coolest fucking brands in the world. So like, I do deserve to be paid for that experience, because there's not a single way that I can audit you and give you my perspective without giving you a bit of my secret sauce. But the reason I get people to pay for that is because I need them to, from an energetic level, value my time in order to take it really seriously. Because the worst thing that I could do is give you advice that I've worked really hard on giving you a curated view on, because there is not a blanket level advice that I could ever actually give a business, and then for you to not take any of that. So it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense in that view. And like, I think a couple of other things that really set myself up for success within that business is, we all know that I brought Natalie on this year, and I think she started as like 2 or 3 days a week. I don't know. I'm looking at her to check, 'cause I'm like, I don't remember. So I think it was 2, and then we moved to 3, and then now we're at 5, and now we're at like, okay, well, we need somebody else on the team because we found her zone of genius. And these are all really great things. But again, this takes an investment. It takes the responsibility of like, I'm now responsible for somebody's wage, which is like so cool, but also like, again, I'm so grateful for my clients, and like all of these things kind of come into place. But I would not be able to be the best me if I'm not resourced from my team in that way. I've also started shifting some of the things that I'm investing in. I'm investing in an AI workshop at the end of the month that one of my best friends is hosting, which I'm so excited about. I've invested in a rebrand project. So you will see a glow up to Chantel Braley Consulting, If You Know You Grow, and another sneaky, cheeky little project that we've been working on in the background. Because you know what I realized? As much as I am not a brand, I am a brand. So I need to make sure that my brand world is well curated, because what do I constantly tell clients? You need to have brand identity. You need to have brand world. So that in itself is taking an investment, because I am not very good at Canva. Nat is very good at Canva, but also like I value the people in their lanes and I value graphic design and I value creative. And these are all things that are just like incredibly important. But let's go into some goal setting. So, how am I goal setting for myself? Well, look, in a perfect world, I would have had a couple of days off where I'm jumping in and we're having this big deep dive. I actually had an entire week blocked out in my calendar for this. Since then, I have actually had to book a trip to Melbourne for a day trip. So, shout out to everybody in Melbourne. I will be there for approximately one day on the 16th in case anyone wants to have martinis. I think I'm doing nothing between 5 and 8:45 p.m. because I'm literally taking the first flight and the last flight out. So I love that for me. But it meant that we didn't go to the Maldives. We're not going to have these things, but I'm going to plan some time to take time out. So you need to take time out of your business in order to have clarity on what you want in your business. And the things that I'm going to be focusing on is how do I want to build a culture within my team and my business in the next 6 months? How are we going to resource differently? What do we need to change from a processes and operational perspective? And also, how am I going to show up differently from a marketing lens? So those are my core objectives. I'm looking at people, operations, a little bit of product, and I'm looking at marketing because those are 4 key drivers of how I'm going to improve my business. So if you're looking at your business right now, or even if you're looking at your career path, what are the different areas that you need to focus on in order to drive your next level of growth? I'm not sure what those things might be. For a lot of people, the one thing when we talk about things being scary, finance is going to be the first thing that comes up. And that is something that businesses need to be paying attention to. There is a lot of noise right now touching on the fact that, these businesses are having problems. And the thing is any business that has a problem that goes into receivership or that goes into administration, that writing was on the wall a very long time before it happened. And it's scary and it's hard and every business is going to have a slightly different reason. However, this is where advisory comes into play. You should have a very, very clear view on your cash flow. It's so funny. The brands that talk about cash flow don't actually have cash flow problems. And I think that's because they have that conscious view of, how much cash do I have? How much cash do I need to have? I have a cash flow forecaster, which if you think about it, do I actually need it? Because do I have a lot of expenses? Not really. I have to pay Nat, I have to pay myself. I have to pay like an internet bill, a phone bill, and I also have to pay for my office. My expenses are actually quite low as a business. But when I sat down with Tegan, it was even like, well, okay, so in order to drive profit, how do we start putting budgets in for travel? So Chantel needs to be more organized with her travel because sometimes booking these last minute flights to Sydney get a little bit wild. So I looked at that because I need to treat myself. I am a business. I need to treat myself as a business. Do you have a view on cash flow within your business? As a senior leader, if you are responsible for MER, do you also understand the gross profitability of your brand? Do you have a view of cash flow? Your founders may not want you to have a view of cash flow. If you are a founder and you are asking someone to make material decisions into your business, they should have a view of cash flow. If you can't trust them with that, then you need to get advisory to where you have additional foresight on that, especially if you have, and this is where things get really complicated, if you have channels that are outside the direct to consumer lens, one of the really great ways to fuck your cash flow is from wholesale. Why? Wholesale is awesome. You get volume. It is beautiful, right? But you have the difference of supplier payment terms and then you have your retailer payment terms. And if you have to pay for everything on order, maybe you want to renegotiate that because you're not going to get that until 30 to 60 days after your retailer receives an order. Depending on your product pipeline, that could mean that you are spending money well and truly 6 months prior to you receiving any money. That may be fine for your business, but if it's not fine for your business, this is where you need financial advisory and financial support. The next thing when you're thinking about goal setting is I want you to think about people, right? This can be people in terms of the people on your team, the people around you. Are you appropriately resourced? Do you have the right people at the right time? And then the next thing could be is, do you need support from the people side? I love investing in management courses and people leadership courses, because I am so privileged with the fact that I know that I have become that like cool person. And like, look, I'm not saying that I'm cool, but like it's that weird thing of like when I was 18 and the big boss used to come in and he'd be like, oh, she's so fucking cool, I want to be here when I'm older. I'm now that person. So that comes with a level of weight. That comes with the responsibility of me needing to make sure that I'm showing up appropriately, because if I'm going to be responsible for inspiring people, I then also need to be responsible for showing up in a great capacity. And that is tough. When it's stressful, that's really tough. And I have made a lot of mistakes in my career in this area. Sometimes it's because I'm a little bit sassy, a little bit sarcastic, and I don't realize how I'm being perceived. And other times it's because I didn't have the appropriate tools to lead people in the appropriate way. And that is like a really hard pill to swallow as somebody who wants to always be a great leader. But I feel like Oprah said this, but I think of Gina Henderson when I say this, who's one of my really great friends. When you know better, you do better. And that is a constant thing as a leader. If you know that you need to do better and you know how to do better, you're going to do better. And then the last thing is, I think that everybody should start thinking about how they are going to challenge themselves with the second half of this year, right? We have like a couple little refreshes. So we've got obviously the start of the new calendar year. We then have Lunar New Year. So, as a little Asian baddie or a partially Asian baddie, I do participate in that because Year of the Horse is fucking coming hot. We then also have this new financial year. So here's another third point of being like, hey, if you're not there, let's recalibrate, re-goal set, and actually get exactly where you want to go. And why not take this opportunity to figure out what you didn't do in those first 6 months that you want to do in the next 6 months? The next 2 months are going to feel grim. Why are they going to feel grim? Because one, you should be spending money to start growing your audience ahead of BFCM because it's cheaper to do it now than it actually is in that period. But also because it is a slow period. Winter is slow for Australian consumers, and the US market is starting to slowly simmer down because we're coming to the middle and end of their summer season. So with that, that means consumer behavior is going to shift. It has always been slow this time of year for forever. You can still have year-on-year growth, but you're not going to have likely as big of a month in July as you would have in March, and that is just the nature of shopping behavior. Keep in mind, people are in Europe, they have other priorities. There is a lot of noise about recession at the moment that is going to change the way that people spend. What does this mean? This means that you need to make sure that you are creating fun content, that you are educating people, that you are nurturing your community, that you're focusing on retention, because more than ever, it is valuable to retain the people that you have. And you have to do that in ways that are not discounts, because that's how you retain your margin. And then I feel like the last kind of like little thing that I'm going to do to kind of reset and like re-goal set is I'm going to book in some me time. So at some point, I don't really know when, I am going to go on a holiday that is not a work trip, because I have not had one of those in okay, actually, no, I lied. So I had one of those a year ago. Can you believe that my girls' trip to Bali was only a year ago? It feels like it was 2 years ago, because that's how long everything has been. And that was actually when the podcast launched. So exciting. But it's been a year since that trip. And maybe it doesn't feel like it was a holiday because Amber jam-packed it with so many activities that people thought I was on a hen's weekend. No, that was a birthday party. My friends are just very over the top. And I love the over the topness, but they are very over the top. So I haven't had just like a sit back, relax, chill the fuck out holiday. And I think that I need one of those. I think I just need a little bit of rest and recovery. So, and I keep saying that, but like eventually I'm going to do it. And I want to share some trend predictions that I have for the next 6 months of what I think is going to shift. I think one big thing that is going to continue to happen and continue to shift is going to be out of home or in real life moments to activate a brand. And these could be low cost little things like guerrilla marketing that are going to be popping up in some areas. And I think like we see little bits and pieces of this, of people having like, like poster activations that they haven't paid for, or people are popping out, like handing out stickers or merch or any of those things. Like those things have always existed, but I think we'll continue to see little tiny bits of those. I also think that we're going to see a shift in more creators are either going to be doing collaborations with brands or they're going to be taking equity in brands. We're constantly a couple years behind the US, and I think Alex Earl is the perfect example of exactly what this looks like. But I know that I'm having conversations behind the scenes where we're talking about not necessarily equity plays, but rev share plays, because we want people who have fucking skin in the game. You want people that have skin in the game because that is how you actually drive long-term brand equity for a brand. That is something that I think we're going to continue to see because creators are very great at creating storytelling content. Brands need storytelling content. So how do you find the merger between those? You get people to work on long-term brand creator collaborations. And I'm not saying like, this brand, X this brand. We're always going to see some of those, but the difference is behind the scenes, the negotiations are going to feel a little bit different. And you may also see people come in more in the Izzy Mather CSB style, where she's coming in kind of as creative director because she's got a particular view on that audience and it's going to help inspire that audience. And I think it's just a fun way to kind of tell a little bit of a difference in a story. I also think there's lots of opportunities for brand collabs. If you haven't listened to the episode with Jess Rufus, and we've got a whole episode on partnerships. She is like the partnerships expert in Australia. So if you don't have a view on actually what that looks like, that is something where I would highly recommend you to look at like what is another brand that you can partner with. And this could be something as simple as like when we talk about in real life activations. I would love, so guys, if you're a brand that wants to do this, I would love to organize this. But one of the things that I used to love about LA, and this is like core 2007, 2008 working in PR in LA, is we used to do these like summer beach houses. And this is kind of where the concept of Summer Fridays comes from, because in PR, you would like finish out half days on Fridays. We, by the way, at Chantel Braley Consulting are trying to do Summer Fridays. So it's permanently blocked out from 12 o'clock in our calendars every Friday, hopefully for forever. We'll see. I'm not really participating in it yet, but my goal is to get there. But you would finish because like all of the different brands would have different houses across like Malibu and like blah, 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 blah. Why aren't 3 to 4 really cool brands putting together a beach house, right? Why is something not happening in Palm Beach or Burley or in Bondi or Coogee or like any of these places? Like, why are we not doing something cool that is that mixture of like VIP customers can pop in? It's a little bit of a pop-up shop. It's a whole lot of a vibe. It's a content experience. Like, how much fun would that be? Like, let's take a book from the old school PR lens, right? Because back in the day, this was all about earned media value and brand equity. And right now, everything feels really paid to play and we're super reliant on meta. So how can we shift a narrative to kind of like make things fun and exciting? I think that we're going to see that shift where people are going to start doing things that feel a little bit different. And then I think my last trend prediction is the fact that we are going to see brands start going on sale a lot more in the next couple of months. I don't want you to get caught in the concept of comparison, because I know that sometimes brands will film that we had our best sale day ever before the sale even started. I know brands that will go on sale because they need cash flow. I know brands, and like these are all things. None of these are bad things. But if you don't need to go on sale, don't go on sale for the sake of growth, because you will train your customer. So the next couple of months, it is very likely that we are going to see a lot of brands go on sale. Go on sale where it makes sense for you. Control the narrative where it makes sense for you. Don't go on sale because everybody else is going on sale. Because if you have a premium brand that doesn't go on sale, all you're doing is eroding your margins, and you're spending money to tell people that you've eroded your margins. And that is not how you build a long-term brand, because we can all think of brands where we're like, I'm just going to wait till they're on sale. And never are you working within a brand as an employee or as a founder to create a product that people only want to buy at 30 to 40% off. That is literally like a waste of all of our times. It's just, there's no point. Well, this is kind of like a little bit of a wrap for me for this season. So thank you so much for coming along, and I can't wait for next season. We will be having an invite only party, which details will be dropping for. We'll probably give away a couple of tickets. I don't really know how I'm going to do that giveaway yet, but that's all in this week's planning. And it's going to be in Brisbane, and I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to be in the position to where it can be something invite only and we're not selling tickets for it, because I love the fact that I'm going to be able to give back to this community. So I will chat to you in August. now. So we'll still be sharing some clips from our favorite episodes, and we'll still be doing a little bit of knowledge sharing. But this next month is really going to be about If You Know You Can Grow, Chantel Braley Consulting, and the entirely new little project that we're working on, building together its foundation so it can all launch in August. Have a great start of the new financial year, and just pat yourself on the back and give yourself a little bit of a hug for any of the things that you've done these last 6 months, and just get ready for the next 6 months to feel bigger than ever. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye.